I remember coming down with my dad and coming along to see the lots of workers in the Abbey churchyard, lots of stonemasons, lots of noise, lots of people watching, and my uncle there with a block of presumably oak, because I suppose that's what the door is.
And so he had been a woodworker for most of his life, had he?
For all his life, yes. He was. People think he may have been a stonemason, but I remember my dad saying he was a wood carver, not a stonemason. But I don't know who he worked for, but it looked like he might have worked for Hayward and Worcester, but I don't know that for sure.
And so it was the carving on the west front door. Can you just describe which part of the carving he did, please?
It was in one of the shields, and there's 3 diamonds, and it was the nearest diamond, though it would be the west diamond, and that was the one he was carving. And I believe the other diamond was broken, because I'm sure that on his workbench there was a broken diamond, and I take it he was copying, or however they did it, copying that and then making a new one.
And you said it was in 1947 that you remember going down to see him.
The restoration started in 1947. That would tie in with the age I was. Yes, it must have been in the summer. And it must have been, it wasn't, it was really bright sunshine. So I remember this sort of this torch glinting off the sun, now I come to think of it.
It's a wonderful image of you walking into the Abbey Square in the bright sun.
Yeah, I remember coming down and seeing them. It was really busy. It was a hive of activity, really, and they were all along just in front of the Abbey there at the side, and lots of them, ever such a lot, and ever so noisy. They were also working, now I remember, on some of the stone carving on the Abbey, but that's just a recollection of the day it happened.
I want to come back to that day in the sunshine and you walking into the Abbey Square. How many people, roughly, do you remember seeing, and what sort of jobs were they doing?
They were doing stone carving, and a lot of stone carvers with chisels and saws and cutting up blocks and things. I remember him coming across from the wood carving and showing my father what he was doing, and there was lots of people watching. There was a lot of people around the edge, and we walked across to the actual wood desk that he was carving the wood carving on.
And whereabouts in the square would he have been doing the carving?
They were all working out on the Abbey churchyard, I suppose. Yeah, that's where it was. It was just towards the Abbey as well. It wasn't down in the square. It was actually right outside the Abbey.
And being a retiring type, he would have been working by himself, would he, on this carving?
He looked like, to me, from what I can remember, he looked like he was the only one doing this carving. Now, there might have been others there, I don't know, but I do remember he seemed to be on the edge of the stone carvers. So he seemed his bench or table, whatever he had, was... Yeah, it was on the edge. It wasn't in the middle. It was on the edge. So he came across to us. He didn't pass anyone. He just came from the wood to talk to my dad.
And you remember the sounds very vividly. Can you describe those sounds for us? What sort of sounds do you remember? I
remember the screeching of the saws and the hot sun and the sun reflecting off the circular saws they were. I don't know if they were hand saws. I don't know. But I do remember. They looked... As looking back now, they looked very old. They all looked really older, a lot older men than what you probably would see working today. So I do remember sort of thinking how busy they all looked and what a hive of activity it was, really.
And do you remember what they were wearing, the kind of work clothing?
They sort of had overalls on, long coats, and they all had them on as well. And some of them had hats on. And Uncle Charlie had a long brown coat on. I'm sure he did.
Do you remember, did he wear glasses at all? Did he have anything to protect his eyes?
No, nothing at all. And I can remember none of them appeared to have any safety uniform or whatever it's called.
And you said that there were quite a few people standing around and watching. Do you remember how many people were sort of watching the work going on in the Abbey and the kinds of reactions to the work?
See, there was a lot of people and a lot of interest, and I remember a lot of noise, people talking. I remember a great deal of people because we walked away from the people towards him. So there was a lot. So I think it was cordoned off with rope or something. I'm sure it was cordoned off, but we were allowed to go across the barrier to see what he was doing.
And how far had he got on this block of wood when you went to see him?
It was a recognisable diamond. I can remember the shape on the workbench as a diamond, and almost as if it was almost finished. So whether Dad went down to see him when it was nearly finished or for whatever reason, I don't know. But it was certainly recognisable as a diamond shape. It must have been quite an honour with how many skilled workmen there would have been in Bath that they chose him to do that odds one thing. It looks like just maybe one thing on the Abbey door. I don't know why he was chosen, but I remember my dad said it was quite an honour. I remember saying, oh, your uncle's got this, been chosen to do this, and it's such an honour, and it's really important we go and see him. And that's how it came that we went. But I remember my dad was really excited and really proud, and they did talk about it afterwards. And we were brought down, me and my sister were brought down as children to see it again as it was then set in the door. I think I got a feeling there was quite a big opening, maybe the mayor or maybe lots of people were there, but that wasn't the same day. That was a different day. So maybe when it was actually set in the door, maybe there was an occasion then.